Hi, my name is Dr. Ray Pastor, and today I'm going to talk about personality tests, specifically focusing on one of the most popular ones, the Myers-Briggs test. All right, so most of you have heard of this test. You've probably taken this test. You might have even taken this test for a job. So let's first talk about what this test does. Myers-Briggs test is designed to help you figure out what your personality is and to match that up with something. Um, Here's their website. I can go and I'm a big, assessment person, so I like to look at the reliability and validity of these kinds of tests. So I go and look at their reliability and their validity, and they have some good statistics here, and I like to see that. Whenever I'm going to give a test or look at a test, I want to look at, you know, reliability and validity. For those of you that don't know what those are, reliability is how consistency the consistency of the test is going to measure something, and will that consistency stay over time? Now, Myers-Briggs provides some stats that about, you know, people will continuously on a retest get the same type about 75 to 90% of the time. They also offer for some validity evidence here. That is the validity is your test measuring what it says it actually is measuring? Is it valid? Does the content, is it correct? Um, okay, so they provide some evidence here. However, the issue with these tests and other tests like them is as soon as we start looking at the research, we find that these tests are not doing what they say they want to do. And there are some issues here. So I'm going to point out, these are just some articles. Here's one on Smithsonian Mag, and here's one on Forbes. Um, and basically, if we just even look at the titles of these articles, Myers-Briggs personality test is pretty much meaningless. So is that right, or is Myers-Briggs right? Well, unfortunately for Myers-Briggs and other personality tests, pretty much all the research that's been done by independent people, like not the Myers-Briggs Foundation, has not agreed with what they're finding. They find that these tests are not correct, and there are a number of reasons for that. These articles highlight them. Um, so the first thing to think about is these tests. Myers-Briggs test by itself is a $20 million a year industry. So this is a business. So they don't want research to come out against them. And this is a business. We're talking about people making a lot of money off of this. So if someone's making a lot of money off of this, they don't want to hear, hey, what you're doing is not right. Um, okay, so let's look at some of the things that people have to say. You know, One person here, is comparing the Myers-Briggs to horoscopes, and I think that that's fairly accurate. I think that if you're going to use Myers-Briggs, you might as well use horoscopes or birthdays or astrology or tarot cards or anything like that. I think they all fall into the same category. The Myers-Briggs test only uses positive words. They're showing how horoscopes and Myers-Briggs are very much similar. Um, and then we're going to talk about, some of the things. The big problem here is that we're not really sure what personality is. There's no evidence at all that there are only 16 categories, 16 different personality types out there. We don't really know that. We have no proof of that. We have no evidence of that. Um, we don't have any research on that at all, actually, that shows that. It's, you know, these types of tests, as they say here, does not conform to many of the basic standards expected in psychology tests. Yeah, that's correct. Um, there's really no evidence that these measure anything because we can't say that there's only these 16 types. Um, so there are these issues here. In 1993, we had experts, which are educational psychologists, experts warn that a large body of research suggests that the claims made by these tests, specifically MBTI, cannot be supported. Again, 2005, research showed um, the test makes promises that it can't keep. So what's the main issue here? Why are these people coming out and saying this? So the first part that we have is that these kinds of tests are not reliable. What does that mean? So research shows that at 5 weeks out, The Myers-Briggs, so besides the validity issue, which is there's no such thing as these 16 categories because we don't really have proof that there's any. So besides it, so there's no validity evidence. So the validity evidence is not there. We don't have that. Next, reliability. Reliability is if I give this test to someone and then I give it to them again like a week later, they're going to have the same score. Otherwise, or within a scale, a very similar score, or else it's not reliable. Um, that's so what happens is what research has found is that after 5 weeks of time lapsed between the Myers-Briggs test, over 50% of the people that take it change their personality type. Over 50% at 5 weeks out changed their personality. That means 1 in 2 people after 5 weeks come up with a different personality. So if you're hiring someone because of a personality or even using that as one category, you should know that in 5 weeks that person might have a different personality based on what the test says. Assuming there were these six, because you can't even go to reliability without validity, but assuming it's valid, which it's not, we can't even relate it. And the next problem is we're giving people these categories. So if we were to hire someone based on a category and it changes in 5 weeks, then all of a sudden the whole idea, the whole reason we were using it was flawed in the first place. So this and other personality tests are really not real. I think that they're fun to use for fun, the same way that a horoscope is fun to read, or what the fortune that you get in your fortune cookie, or anything like that. I think it's definitely entertaining. I think it's fun to do. Um, but if you're using this for anything serious, I think that you've got some issues with the validity or reliability of the instruments that you're using, and you really need to research that and look beyond the organizations that are the ones profiting. Look at the independent research on the topic because there is quite a bit. All right, thank you.